with us for this celebration of my dad's life. On behalf of my dad's sister Anne, his children and his grandchildren, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. I would like to take a moment here to thank some very special people. And they are the people who were Dad's companions and his caregivers. And first I would like to recognize Bernice Frisch, who was his best buddy and companion in Madison for 6 years. She did wonderful things with Dad. Thank you, Bernice. And I would like to thank his nurse, Tammy Benson. I think she's still here somewhere. I hope she's here. There she is. Tammy got us through these last 10 months, and Dad loved having her around. And he even let her win at cribbage once in a while. And then I would like to thank Steve Schuick and Margaret O'Mara for all the care and love they gave Dad. And of course, my siblings. I couldn't have done any of this without their love and support, and they couldn't have done it without me. We were just one big family. And the pallbearers, I think some of them are gone, but there were 3 chiropractors, as you noticed, Dr. Conway, Dr. Bouch, and Dr. Berkeley, and then his cherished nephew, Sean Murphy, and his wonderful friend Tim Radelet from Madison, and Scott Stanger, lobbyist from Madison. Scott had to go back. They were all people who loved Dad when he was on top of the world, but they were also people that loved Dad as he got older. And they called and they made him feel very, very special. And that's what we all need to do with the old people in our lives. They are our treasures. And these 6 men knew that very well. And then the priests, I hope Father Cook is still here, and Father Billy, they may have gone. They're still here. Dad would, and Monsignor Charles had to go back, and I think, who else, who am I missing? Father McGarty. And Dad would always tell Father Billy, Father Cook, you know, you don't belong here. You belong in New York. And I think New York was the epitome of success to Dad. Because if you were in New York, you must have made it. You were on top of the world. But thank God they didn't listen to him, and they've stayed here with us. The experts talk to us about death and dying, and they tell us that in the end of life, there are 2 questions, and really only 2 questions that someone actually cares about. And those are, was I loved, and did I love well? It was hard for my dad to take in how much he was loved, because he was so good at giving it away. But I think in the end of his life, and I know from his nurse Tammy, she would say to him, Bill, do you know how much your children and your grandchildren love you? And he was able finally to just say yes and smile. So he took it in, and we were so, so grateful that we got to take care of him and love him through these days of his life. And then the other question, did I love well? Well, there is no real question, is there? This room is filled. He was 92 years old. And most 92-year-olds might have a few people at their funeral. He always said, what can I do for you? How can I help you? How is your health? Should I get you into Mayo Clinic? He gave advice to anyone who called and he thought worthy, and I guess he thought most people worthy. He gave his advice, his friendship, and his love. This morning, my friend Vaughn Vance had to go back to Madison, but he was checking out of the Grand Stay Hotel, where my dad used to stay quite often. And the lady that gets the breakfast ready at the Grand Stay said to him, are you here for the Gerrard funeral? And one said, yes. And she said, oh, we love Bill Gerrard here. We are going to miss him so much. My dad loved everybody, and it didn't matter if you were a big shot or you were a lady serving orange juice, because everybody is valued and everybody is important. And also, our next speaker is someone that knows that very well. Tommy Thompson, like my dad, knows that it's really just about how you love. That's really all life is about. And it's about how you make people feel. Well, it's no wonder that Dad and Tommy were great friends. They were both warm, gracious, generous, gregarious Irishmen. They both leave people feeling better about themselves than they did before they encountered Tommy or Dad. And the Gerrards have loved Tommy Thompson. I told Tommy I've only voted for one Republican in my life, but I voted for him all 4 times. Tommy Thompson has been a dear friend to my dad and a dear friend to our entire family. And I'm so happy to welcome Governor Thompson to share some thoughts about my dad.
Oh, please, 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 please. Please! Marianne, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all, I love you all. That sound like Bill? You know, walking up here, I thought of, what would Uncle Billy say? He'd say, well, look at all the fat cats. He always said that, and remember that? You're all the fat cats. Mary's right, and you are. And Billy is looking down from heaven. And I was thinking about this coming up, you know. Got Pat Lucy up there, and you got Bill Gerrard, best of friends. I can tell you within the last 2 weeks, they've been in to see God and say, you know, God, that little hot spot north of hell down there, you know, for 5%, we'll cut our commission to 5%. With that little hospital, we could turn it into a spa and a nice resort area. Well, and if you really want us to, you know, we can probably subdivide this over here for some elderly housing, and we can probably, you know, the good Lord said he's going to go and prepare a mansion for us, right? A room. And I'm sure that's exactly what Bill and Pat Lucy right now are doing for 5%. You know, they'll cut the commission for 5% and get ready for all of us. You just wait to see. The priests, I think, were fantastic. Father Billy, really nice meeting you, and Father Robert, and Monsignor McGarty. It's always a pleasure and privilege to see you, and all of the pallbearers. You can't imagine the love affair that Bill Gerrard had with the chiropractors. They must have paid him really well. Come on in. I can get you an adjustment, Tommy. You look a little tired here. Come on over. And he and Ken Lukey would come into my office, and the last thing I wanted was an adjustment in the middle of the day. Oh, you look tired, Uncle Billy. He said, come on over, Ken. Give him an adjustment. And so they campaigned hard, and it was quite an event when the insurance equality bill that Billy had lobbied, as Tim Cullen had said, for 4 governors and got it through, and I signed into law. They never forgot it. And as Uncle Billy would always say, Tommy, I want to tell you, all you have to do is get the chiros behind you, and you can't lose. He says, I don't care. They'll go out and work all the time for you, so just make sure you get the chiros behind you. And I always did, and Uncle Billy was always there, and it was great. I thought the musicians were absolutely outstanding today, and I'm sure Uncle Billy picked out all the songs, and I'm sure he and Pat Lucy, if they're not subdividing, we're singing along and humming along. And then of course the family. Uncle Billy loved you. Uncle Billy would talk about you, and the most devastating thing that I ever been involved with Uncle Billy was when Mike died in a heart attack. And he came in and he just cried and cried. As two Irishmen, we cry all the time. And he said, it's just not right. I said, and I remember Gary George and I coming up to the funeral. And I know Gary George is here, Senator George, and was another one of Bill's great friends. And we came up into the funeral, and it was just amazing how Bill just loves his family. Loves all of you. Mary Ann, thank you for your kind words and what you did for your father was really good. And Kate and Nancy, you three ladies, he loved and adored you and your grandchildren, and of course the boys he had to put up with. he loved Mike, but Peter and Paul were, he would say to me, they might make it, they're not as good as I am or Mike, but they just might make it. And I can remember he said, you got to go over and see Peter and Paul over in Rochester. So I went over there, and I was over there, and Peter and Paul showed me all of their developments, and they do a fantastic job. And Uncle Billy, always the moneymaker, the rainmaker. He says, Tommy, he says, I got this mayor up in Rochester, and I'm raising money for him. And I said, I don't. No, why would I want to contribute money to a mayor up in Rochester? He said, Tommy, you never know when you might need him. And I said, why would I need a mayor of Rochester in Minnesota? He said, well, you never know. You just give me out a small check. So I wrote him out a $100 check. He looked at it and he said, not supposed to be that small. So he ended up taking me for $250 for a guy I never met. I don't even know if he won. Did he win or not? He won. Okay, well. I don't even know his name. I don't know how the hell he ever asked him for help. I don't even know what I did. Uncle Billy wanted to make sure I did that. And then Uncle Billy was, was just a unique individual. Running for governor. And Uncle Billy, he doesn't, as everybody said, he doesn't want to offend anybody. So Uncle Billy, supports everybody. And so the day of the election comes over to my headquarters. Walks in, he said, oh, Tom, you guys are doing a good job. Jim Clauser was one of his best friends. They lived in the same development. And they always spent time convincing and talking, and he came in and he said, I think you guys got a good chance. That afternoon, this is in the morning, that afternoon he went into Tony Earl's office. In the governor's office, he said, oh, Tony, you don't have anything to worry about. They are just off. He said, I just voted for you. You're going to win, no problems. That night after the election, and the ballots were counted, I win. Less than an hour. Less than an hour. Billy calls me and says, thank God, Tommy, we did it. And I said, Billy, he said, that's not true, that's not true. When you confronted Uncle Billy, he always changes the subject. He'd be on to another subject and you could never pin him down. And I think one of the greatest stories, I got to read this one. I had a young my attorney in the governor's office was a guy by the name of Stuart Simonson. And Uncle Billy called him Skeezings. And I got to read this because it's so darn funny. Bill called Skeezing one morning. This is from Stuart. And went on the attack right away. He said, talking to Stuart Skeezing, he had heard that I told Dan Baracus there was no way we could use the Taliesin Authority for Holy Hill. Holy Hill is this big church down in southwestern Wisconsin, and Billy had befriended these priests. So he brought him in. Bill makes a series of accusations about the quality of my Catholicism. And he told me what a disappointment I probably was to the nuns who taught me in grade school and to members of my family. He said he was just so disgusted that I wouldn't even meet with the friars. He said he was just so disgusted. Billy asked, what kind of a prima donna won't even meet with two kindly priests? It was just disgusting. That's what it was. I told him, this is Stuart, I told him I never said I wouldn't meet with them. He said, okay, we'll be there Monday afternoon. So Monday afternoon comes and rolls around, and Billy, Father Cyril, Father Jude, and a cousin of Billy's, a lawyer named Bill Swinson. Is he by any chance here? You'll remember this story, Bill, from Oconomowoc show up. Billy, you always knew when Billy was serious because he came in with his brand new blue suit and tie. If he didn't have the blue suit on, you knew he was not really serious on that one. But that day he came in wearing his good blue suit, and he always, when he was important, he had a manila folder. There was never anything in it, but he had the manila folder. And these were never good signs. And after a few very brief pleasantries, Bill launched into a big speech about how disgusted he was that a supposedly good Catholic boy like Skeetis wouldn't want to help these poor friars who are just getting by and will probably have to close up Holy Hill shop soon because of their property taxes. And then where would people go to pray and so forth? Billy kept saying, if I would just try to help for a change, instead of giving them the runaround, we get this done. He said he knew that me, the governor, would never want to hurt the poor Carmelites, so they just could not understand why Skeetis was being so difficult. He said it was an outrage, and the solution was just as simple as it could be. And Stuart said, I don't agree with that, Bill. It's not simple, but I will listen. Billy carried on for a bit more, and about being a simple Catholic taxpayer, trying to help a couple of poor priests. And what does he get in return? Nothing but the runaround and disrespect. It was a disgrace, he said. That's what it was, a disgrace. Finally, he said to Bill Swinson. He always brought somebody in. Bill Swinson said, Bill, you tell him how to do it. So Bill proceeded to tell Stuart what he thought, and then he kept interjecting, comments about me and my hostility to simple taxpayers like him and Father Cyril and Father Jude. I don't know what to make of this production. And Father Cyril and Father Jude, I don't know if they're here, but they loved Uncle Billy from Holy Hill. And they kept laughing nervously. They didn't know what was going on. But in December, we were able to get them a property tax cut, and Billy took credit for it. And I'm sure right now the Carmelites who are up there are with Bill and Pat looking at real estate. And then Bill had another. Bill was, I wrote up with Steve Hurley and Avi B. and Terry Gross and I. We were exchanging Bill Gerrard stories. Bill Gerrard had a strange way of lobbying. He'd come into you and say, you're my friend. These clients are my friends. Let's just get together and work it out. He said, what about the facts? Oh, don't think about the facts. It's just in the way. Let's just work it out. So he'd come in and he'd put his big arm around you, and Bill would walk in. Bill was tall. And you always knew when you were going to be in trouble, because if Bill got a hold of your hand, then what he would do, and I saw Peter doing it today, put his hand out there, get his left hand around you. You know what I'm talking about? And he'd suck you in. And then you couldn't get away. And then he'd tell you what he wanted. And then you were so close to him, you didn't know what was going. You couldn't say no. And you had to get rid of him, so you said, okay, fine. Bill Gerrard. And then I see Sam Gross was here. And Sam was one of Bill's partners. He came in to see Skeetis, and he said, the railroads I represent, they're just getting screwed up. Stuart, they're just getting screwed. You guys are screwing them. They're getting wrong. And And Stuart says, well, what's wrong? What's going on? He said, well, you tell him, Sammy. You tell him what's going on. And remember that day? Bill didn't know why he was in there. He just had the railroads as a client. He came in with his speech, you're just screwing me. You're just screwing me. And poor Sam had to tell the story. But I'll tell you, it was a love relationship like you can't believe. And Bill was, as Tim Cullen, who should have run for governor, and Judge Wagner Malloy said that he just loved everybody. And he was bigger than life. You walked in, and you immediately liked the guy. And you wanted to be with him. And you go into Kavanaugh's bar or Avenue Bar, and he knew everybody. He knew absolutely, he'd take you around. And he took Avi B around, and at that time he was no longer a Democrat, and he says to Avi, he says, the last two people I introduced to you two were Democrats. You better go ahead and wash your hands. But if you were a Republican and you were an incumbent, you belonged to the incumbent party. You were his supporter. If you were a Democrat and you were an incumbent, you were his friend, and he'd do anything for you. And he'd say, what can I do for you? What can I do for you, Tommy? And I said, you can't do much for me. I said, I'm doing okay. So, okay, if you ever need anything, let me know. Just call me. And you go out and have lunch with him or dinner. And he was just type of person that we don't see anymore. He made politics fun. He made us think of other things. And I see Gary George is here, Sheehan Donahue, Mary Panzer, 3 legislators, and the mayors were here from La Crosse and so on. All today, Joe Skornica, the former mayor of Madison, and
Kapanke over here.
And Senator Kapanke, all of those individuals just loved Billy because Billy would do anything and everything for them and for anybody he wanted. He made you feel good. He made you, that's what life is all about. Mary Ann says, did people love you? And did you love somebody at the end of your life? Billy Gerrard loved people, and people loved him. They wanted to be around him because he made you feel good, he made you feel important, and he made you feel like you were worth something. And he loved to talk about you. He loved to say he would help you in any way. And no matter who you were, if you were, picking up garbage, if you're setting the table, if you were a governor, if you were a legislator, Democrat or Republican, it didn't matter. Station life didn't matter to Bill Gerrard at all. He just wanted people to get along. He loved bipartisanship. He loved to get things done. And when he could win lobbying, he was the happiest guy in the world. He'd take all of his clients out. I think he probably spent as much money lobbying them to keep the damn contract as they did paying him. But it was just a love affair that you don't find in the capital of Madison or in Washington, D.C. And that's what I admire about Bill Gerrard. He made you feel good. And he loved Irish, and he loved the country of Ireland, and he gave me some cufflinks with Ireland and America. And he was truly the patriot. He loved this United States of America. He loved his country of Ireland. He loved the city of La Crosse in Rochester and Wisconsin. And he loved you, his friends and people. And I'm sure he's looking down from above. He's probably taking a break and having toast and a drink to us. And he says, you guys stick around, but when you die, I'll have a nice chunk of heaven set aside for you, and we'll have a big party there. So God love you, and as the Irishman would always say, may the road always rise to meet you, and may the wind be always at your back, and may the sun shine warm upon your forehead, and the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. God love Billy Gerrard. God love you. God love the United States of America.